rebuking is not just about correcting bad behavior, as I said a moment ago. Rebuking is sometimes exposing lies. Exposing the things in our life where we're being robbed of life and freedom. That's oftentimes what God, maybe even most of the time, what God rebukes us of. So I want to show you a quick picture that you probably will have no idea what it is, just for fun. So this is a picture of some trucks heading into Yellowstone on January 12th, 1995, just 28 years ago. This is a monumentous day that changed Yellowstone. Just in the 28 years since this happened, there's been dramatic change in the park. Anybody have an idea of what it might be? Yeah. Okay, don't say yet. All right, there's a couple of you think you know. Good. Right? Listen, one action this day changed the soil, the growth of plants and grasses, the diversity and populations of wildlife through the park. It even changed the way the rivers flowed. You would think, like, what is it that they're doing? What is it? It's not what you think. They on this day in this back of this truck, they introduced about a dozen wolves back into Yellowstone because Yellowstone didn't have wolves anymore because they'd been killed. In the 1900s, was people were ranching and raising cattle. Wolves and other predators were attacking not only their cattle, but they were also attacking other animals like elk, like they normally do, and it was ruining not only the cattle that they were raising, but also some of the tourism that they were doing. By the way, as we're talking about predators today, because they called it predator elimination, right? So they got rid of wolves and bears and coyotes. Just so you know, predators exist everywhere. This one was found, do we have that? Baltimore Street, first service today. I am not kidding you. In Gettysburg, that was right downtown, they found a black bear. Am I good or what? Okay, I'm just telling you. Okay. Go back. So back to wolves, all right? So they eliminated by, I don't know, in the early 1900s, there's virtually no wolves in Yellowstone anymore. And this is what's fascinating. This is what they discovered, because back then they had no idea, I liked how they said it. We did not have the biologists or understand the concepts of the ecosystem and the interconnectedness of species and the land at that point. So this is what they discovered. Go ahead and go to the next quote here. In the next 70 years, without wolves, Yellowstone was changed by this. Songbirds left. What? Elk and coyotes became overpopulated, and beavers disappeared. Elks overgrazed the land because they were not being eaten by the wolves, and trees such as the willow and the aspen. And so without those trees, the songbirds began to decline. Beavers could no longer build their dams, and streams began to erode and degrade the conditions the willow trees needed to grow. Without beavers' dams and the shade from the trees and plants, water temperatures then became too high for cold water fish to go. It's incredible, the interconnectedness from removing one of these predators and just the way that God has designed all of the ecosystem and the way that life connects. Listen, really simple for me to make this parallel when I first read this years ago is we're no different the way that God has made humanity. We are interconnected with Him and interconnected with each other and interconnected in our world. And what we sometimes as humans, especially in our culture today, where we don't understand or we don't submit to authority, and God says, hey, this is part of your life, and we view it as a threat. We view a limit that God gives us as a predator against our freedom, and we eliminate it, and we don't realize the damage and destruction it does to the ecosystem of our life and all those that are around us. I watch it all the time in people's lives as I sit in counseling, as I look at my own life, as I watch the news, and I just see it. As we live like we can be our own authority and make all of our own decisions. And I'm talking about even us as Christians that get influenced by our culture, and we begin to live our lives that look much more like what is acceptable to our world than it is what God says. We're in danger of eroding this entire system that God has made. That when we live like God wants us to in the freedom and within the limits that God has given us, that is what best brings the flourishing of life and fruitfulness in our life and in all those that are around us. But at the end of the day, you just have to decide, do you trust His authority or do you trust ultimately your own? Because if you're choosing your own authority of what to submit yourself to, you're saying you know best. And I just want to challenge us to say, guys, you can trust God in your life, in your marriage, in your friendships, in your future, in your careers, and everything, you can trust it to the authority of God.